Yes, my name is Maria Corina Muskus. I am a Venezuelan feminist lawyer. I graduated back from law school in Venezuela. And then, after working for a couple of years in human rights, I left Venezuela to pursue a master's degree in the United States, thanks to a scholarship that I received. And then I started more into the pathway of international human rights and law that got me into the Inter American Commission of Human Rights. Then I went into Mexico to do work for NGOs. That's where I created Venezolanas Globales, the first and largest network of Venezuelan migrant women. And now I am living in Canada. I first started doing a master's degree, and now I am a doctoral candidate. This is a very interesting question because at the beginning in Venezuela, I felt that I had like a little bit of an understanding of feminism, but I didn't define myself as feminism. And unfortunately, in Venezuela, we did not have any courses related to feminism or women's rights. My relationship to feminism and women's rights started when I moved to Washington, D.C. to pursue my master's degree. Actually, at American University, Washington College of Law, there's a saying that it's a school of founding mothers and not founding fathers because this law school is founded by women. So you can tell by that law school that it's just like feminism runs through the hallways. And I wanted to pursue a little bit more of an understanding of gender and women's rights, and that a little bit of the specialization that I did combine with international human rights. And when I was there, I noticed that people were not talking about the Venezuela. People were not talking about the humanitarian crisis. There wasn't any awareness of what was going on in Venezuela. And actually, when I was a student there, I organized one of the very first events on Venezuela just to raise awareness of what was going on in Venezuela and how they have a differentiated impact on women. Because that's very important for us to understand that everything that happens in life will impact differently to different people, including migrants, persons with disability, LGBTQI, women, and generally persons in a situation of vulnerability. So when I graduated from law school, it was 2012. The crisis in terms of political, economical, and even security crisis was just rising. I was a new junior lawyer at a law firm, and I was afraid of just leaving after night because I could get robbed. Actually, I was robbed like twice myself on using, guns and a knife. The insecurity in Venezuela, that was one of the main reasons. Second, scarcity. I remember in Venezuela having groups with friends where we could share information about where was you're going to be selling, I don't know, toilet paper, even contraceptives for women, because there was a lot of scarcity in Venezuela. It's not even about having the opportunity to buy it. It was scarce. Of course, for people for low income, it was even harder for them to access food, medicines, like the public system in terms of healthcare was just declining. So it created an environment where it was deeply unsafe for people to live in Venezuela. And that's still ongoing. Now, circumstances can be slightly different, but circumstances of the lack of access to resources, including food, including medicine, including healthcare, continue to happen as of now. So those are primarily one of the reasons, especially for women that was working on human rights, working at the clinic at the university, the human rights law clinic. It was a very complicated environment to continue to perform my love for human rights and international human rights in Venezuela. My inspiration to create Venezolanas Globales was when I moved from the United States to Mexico. I found a job at an NGO, and I arrived to Mexico without any network, without any knowledge of, how to navigate a different culture. Even though we both speak Spanish, is just a different culture. And even with cultures that are very similar, there are actually a lot of difference. So I had the experience of Atlas Community, which was a community of women that work in the areas of international law. And I went to a couple of gatherings, So I kind of grab from here and there and inspire myself to create Venezolanas Globales. I started with a Facebook group where I kind of invited my friends and family that were abroad because most of my family is abroad due to the humanitarian crisis. I invited them to speak about their own journey on migration, who they are, where do they live, so they can connect each other. So, what started as a Facebook group of just like my idea of joining Venezuelan migrant women and supporting myself as well began to grow as a network of Venezuelan migrant women all over the globe. I started, let's do a group of Venezolanas in Mexico. Let's do a gathering. Let's speak a little bit more about the mission and vision of Venezolanas Global. Let's talk about the importance of networking. Let's talk about the importance of community. Then I reached out to friends that I had in New York, London, Peru, Colombia, and I invited them to create their own groups in their own cities where they were living. And that grew until now that it's a network of 5 years, going to be 6 years this year. And we have more than 13 hubs in different places in the world. It changes and varies depending on who is the ambassador that is leading the network in that city. And it's a network of more than 23,000 women all over the globe, inviting them to connect within each other, to connect within Venezuela, to help each other be their best self. Because when you migrate, you lose contacts, you lose network. So, one of the most important things to create is first eliminate this idea that women cannot work together, that women, when they get together, is always to gossip or something. No, we can get together and talk about networking, about finance, about many topics beyond children or gossip. And Venezolanas Globales became a platform where women engage within each other, connected within each other if they have similar networks or similar ideas. So that was a little bit of Venezolanas Globales. So I moved to Toronto in 2021 after I got a scholarship to do a master's here. My main topic was the Me Too movement, which is an online activism of women mentioning, naming, and shaming their harassers because we well known that the criminal system does not respond very well when women approach them. Even society does not respond very well when women speak about their experiences on violence. So I began working on doing a comparison between Mexico and Venezuela, and I ended up doing my master's on Venezuela. I believe the activism goes beyond doing a campaign or even promoting something. I believe that part of me being here is producing knowledge that's it in English about what's going on in Venezuela with the feminist movement. Part of my master thesis is speaking about the experience of Venezuelan women leading and also Venezuelan migrant women leading feminist activism abroad. I continue to work with Venezolanas Globales even though I was here because Venezolanas Globales is an online network. So you really can be anywhere in the world. The team that I had was women in Aberdeen, in Lima, in Bogota, in Washington, D.C., because it's an online network and that allows us to work from everywhere in the world. I am currently part of the board of director of Venezolanas Globales, and the director is now in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she's now leading the network. So I believe that my activism continued to be a Venezuelan in Canada, a Venezuelan in Canada that produces and discusses Venezuelan issues that I think there isn't much in Canada or in the English speaking world. I think the creation of networks are vital for transnational feminism. So, for example, in the case of Venezolanas Globales, we dedicated part of certain dates, like or month, March, to raise awareness on feminist issues, or November, that it's a month of the eradication of violence against women. So the idea that each woman that might not be related to feminism before, that might have not encountered this idea of feminism, that we might think it's widespread, but maybe women have a different understanding of feminisms. And the fact that in Venezolanas Globales we create encounters, talks about this, promoting, for example, in the month of June, LGBTQI voices of trans Venezuelan migrant women or lesbian women that can speak about their experience of not only being a lesbian, but also being a migrant, not only being a trans woman, but also being a migrant, create awareness. So I think in terms of the role of Venezolanas Globales in activism, it has been raising awareness that goes beyond our own personal borders of what we believe it is. And when we cross borders, when we, let's say, when I say cross borders, I mean when we move to another country where we experience migration, our mind opens, right? And parts, for example, of the case of Yo Te Creo, which was the uprising of what was compared to as the Me Too in Venezuela, was Venezuelan migrant women that encounter feminism in different places, including the United States, including Mexico, including Spain, and they could grasp what was going on in feminism and translate it into Venezuela. So it goes both ways. How you learn from the country that you are about feminism or transnational feminism, and you can also add value to that country out of the knowledges that you gain in other places or in your country of origin. So there are many things that I can mention in terms of challenges or maybe accomplishments. I'm going to start with the challenges. When you start a network or as a migrant, you have a lot of challenge, including knowing the country, knowing the healthcare system, the taxes system, like knowing everything of the country. Beyond, you have to add whatever your work is to do and add all the challenges that you work that you do. And if you're creating a network or thinking about community, then that's added work. Unfortunately, most of the community-led organizations by Venezuelan abroad are led by women. And that means that women are doing free labor. They're not getting paid. And that has been unfortunately something like a cross-cutting issue worldwide where women tend to do free labor. So that also creates a challenges of burning out, getting very, very tired because you have to navigate your own migration story, navigate your work, producing money to survive, but also creating a community. In terms of the, let's say, the areas when I felt that I have gained so much, or maybe that I have impacted the lives of others, I would say that is some intangible community that I have created because I know for a fact that women that belong to the network became very close friends and they have been supporting each other in the countries that they are now living. For example, I know for a fact that there is a woman that moved from London to Madrid, and now she already has a network that can help her on anything that has to do with migration, with anything that has to do with taxes. So I have created, with the support, of course, it's not only me, with the support of many, many women that were involved in the process of creating Venezolanas Globales and giving them a grain of salt of organizing events or participating in events of creating like a community of solidarity, I would say. I think that's one of my greatest achievements in Venezolanas Globales is this community of solidarity that was built upon an idea and that everyone added into that idea. I think that as a message, I would like to encourage the states in particular that migrants are not a burden for the country that received them. Migrants are an added value to the country. And if properly done with proper measures, then you can get those migrants to add value to your country. In the very particular case of Canada, Canada will not be what it is if it wasn't for their migrants. Canada is a country built upon migrants, let's face it, right? So I think the idea of migrants creating a burden in healthcare or a burden in housing are just wrong ideas about migrants that just create more xenophobia, just create more rejection towards migrants. But we need to understand that we were all migrants since the beginning. So if we can see that migrants are added value and can add value in terms of diversity, in terms of culture, in terms of ideas, we see the ideas of migrants just adding to the country that they will receive. But it's also how then in the future, those ideas, that knowledge can also come back to the country of origin. So it's a communication that goes both ways. It's not that you're only getting from the country that we migrated. It also can come back to the country of origin.